The numbers are out. March inflation has risen for almost 4-year high, I beg your pardon, to about 12.8%, roughly 1.4% higher than what was recorded in February. In February, we had inflation coming in at 11.4%. Of course, this is reflecting an increase in the prices of goods and services across the nation to a year-on-year high last recorded in July of 2012. Transportation costs, the planting season and foreign exchange movements created significant upward pressure on the food index, which rose about 1.4% to 12.7%. Now we have the core index coming in at 12.2%, up 1.1% from February, and the rural and urban indices also recorded marked increases for the second consecutive month in March. The urban index is up 12.3%, while the rural index increased 1.3 points to 12.0 in the month in review. But let's talk to Bismarck Rewani. He's the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, as we talk about a different issue entirely, and that's the outlook on the economy. Good morning to you, Mr. Rewani. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning, Harriet.
We're tracking the inflation numbers, and of course we're giving an outlook for the economy based on developments that we're getting. Taking a look at the inflation figure, I know I already spoke with Ada about it, but FDC actually projected an increase to about 12.1%, and we're seeing it at 12.8%. Based on your outlook for the economy and based on where the economy is right now, what do you think?
Well, let's put this some context to what has happened. We've seen inflation go from 11.4 to 12.8%. We've seen this because of the variables of what we call shortages. There's cost-push inflation, then inflation, and there's shortage-induced inflation. Shortages have emerged because of distortions to market structure. Market structure in terms of an exchange rate that is misaligned, market structure because of regulated petroleum prices. And so inefficiency of the markets have manifested themselves in significant increase in prices. Now, what is the outlook? Let us look at what has happened in Africa. Of 7 countries that we track, Nigeria is the only country that has reported an increase in inflation. All other countries, Ghana, Egypt, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, have all reported a reduction in their inflation rate. And in particular, Ghana and Egypt had a devaluation of their currencies and have actually reported a reduction in inflation. So that theory, that upside-down theory of quack economists who say that once you have a devaluation, it will be followed almost automatically by a rise in inflation, is not right. As a matter of fact, Nigeria is paying the price of a devaluation without actually devaluing it, without getting the benefits of increased investment. So that is where we are to start with. Now, coming to talk about the outlook of inflation. Now, the issue is clear that the outlook for the economy in 2016 is one of flat growth because of the delay in making critical decisions. The budget has been delayed, investment decisions have been delayed, the adoption of an exchange rate policy has been delayed. So Nigeria has to come to terms with the reality that there's no easy path. There's no easy path to economic prosperity. There's work to be done, and there are decisions that have to be made. There are important decisions that have to be made. There are also urgent decisions that have to be made. The exchange rate policy adoption is a very urgent decision. If you fail to make it, and I said it publicly to the Nigerian public, that a failure to adopt a foreign exchange policy would lead to currency palaver. Currency palaver has led to inflation palaver, and that is what you are seeing now.
But Mr. Rewani, you said urgent decisions have to be made. How much is being done in terms of fiscal discipline? I know that over the weekend, the Minister of Finance actually had a high-stake meeting with businesses and investors here in Lagos. So in terms of what she said and in terms of the body language, how much do you think is being done in terms of fiscal discipline?
She said the right things. I think she's doing the right things. Well, those are necessary things, but they're not sufficient. In addition to what she said, she handles fiscal policy. She's not in charge of the budget. She is not in charge of monetary policy. She's not in charge of the exchange rate. She said it clearly and categorically that I do not handle the exchange rate. I do not handle the budget expenditure. but I do handle the revenue. So as far as the revenue I have, and as far as the leakages are concerned, as far as the tax policy is concerned, she's on an efficient, and we appreciated it, and she was given a standing ovation. But in addition to that, we have to deal with the price of this currency relative to all other currencies in the world is a major drag on the economic performance of this country. We cannot.
But then, of course, we can't have a policy management without having prudent fiscal management as well. And for a certainty, on that day, at that particular meeting, she talked about saving monies through some of the policies that have come in place, including the TSA, which has managed to save some money, and then, of course, weeding out of ghost workers. Now, looking at that money, there's been a lot of conversation about what that money should be used to do. Do you think that that money should be invested back into the economy, and if it should, where and how should it be invested?
Absolutely, that's a very interesting question. The truth is that saving money without investing it simultaneously leads to a negative investment multiplier, because the money would have been used even by those who stole it to buy things and create economic activity. So I agree with the government that savings are important. I agree that blocking the leakage is absolutely important. I agree that these are remarkable achievements. But we cannot delay the disbursement of money to contractors. That money should be spent immediately to mobilize contractors. And she alluded to that was going to be done, that we should give them some more time. But the time is key. We must do those things immediately, because the time between when we make those decisions and when people reactivate their businesses and get things going, you will see that it means a lot. We are going to release our what we call our vacancy factor Lagos index sometime later today, and you will see what we mean, that houses that are vacant in Lagos have been increasing significantly in the last year, because people who don't have no jobs are now defaulting on their rents and are moving out of their houses. So that's another indication of what the outlook is. And remember that the IMF says that we are projecting growth this year in the region of 2.3 to 2.6%. That is much, much lower than our expected trajectory. The Minister of Finance said that she's looking for 8% growth in 2018, right? And to do that, we have to start spending in 2016 very quickly and targeted investments for that matter, so that foreign investments will come in, domestic investments will come in, diaspora investments will come in, and we'll get the country back to work.
Mr. Riwani, I know that there's been a lot of chatter about economic diversification. In fact, it's gotten to be like a sing-song for most conversations that you're actually listening to. Explain to us what you understand by economic diversification.
Economic diversification is both by activity and by revenue. In terms of activity, Nigeria's economic activity is already diversified. You're having Nollywood, you're having ICT, you're having service industry, you're having non-oil and oil. But all of this non-oil activity put together, in terms of revenue, is less than 20% of our total revenue. So it is important that our revenue sources become diversified. And more important also is the international revenue activity. So we need oil, we need LNG, we need cocoa, we need all of these exports. And to do that, again, it fits into the whole discussion of dynamic equilibrium. Don't get me wrong, the economy there are some good things that are happening, but they could happen much faster. And that is why you're having unemployment up. And now with this inflation at 12.8, you can imagine what's going on to the misery index. When you add unemployment to inflation, you're going to have a number now that puts us, we are among the top 5 miserable countries in the world. We might even get to be one of the top 4, who knows?
So, Mr. Riwani, how do you think this administration can do economic diversification differently?
I think saying the right thing, doing the right things, but more than anything else, first of all, sign the budget, disburse the funds, deal with the exchange rate policy, and then every other thing will follow.
But then if you don't have, sorry, Mr. Riwani, to cut you here, but if you don't have a clear, mapped out plan of which sectors in particular that you want to be focusing on, when you have the budget coming out, it seems as if we're going to have monies everywhere and not chasing specific projects that they should be tackling, specific sectors of the economy that should be generating more revenue and creating jobs and also reflating the economy.
No, there's a plan. There's a plan. No, let's not deceive ourselves. There's a plan. There are people who are doing. In the Vice President's office, you have people like Ben Akabweze in the Budget office. They have the Minister of Budget. There's Kemi Adeosun there. There's Oke Enelama, We have a team there. There's a plan. All they need to do is to get started. And with the budget, you can now spend. Without the budget, you will not spend officially. Most of these people are lawyers, and they're not going to break the laws and get themselves impeached because they've breached the budget process. But you cannot underestimate the importance of the budget, because government spending is a critical element in an economy that needs to grow, especially when domestic and international investment are slow to zero. So the only thing that can kickstart this economy and stimulate it is government spending. And that is why I'm saying that once the government starts spending, once we adopt a flexible exchange rate policy, you'll be surprised how much money will come into this country. We will take off and achieve double-digit growth within 2 years, definitely.
So, Mr. Rwani, just before I let you go, based on what the Vice President has said in recent time with regards to reflating the economy, the Minister of Finance as well has been telling investment and business community, are you bullish on the state of the economy in the second half of the year?
I am bullish, but a caveat is that if there's no exchange rate policy, we are going to perform suboptimally. That is, we will still perform, but we could do much better. And so all of us should pray, and I think so, and I believe that MPC is going to meet in May, and we've had 2 consecutive months of increases, spikes in inflation. There's no doubt in my mind that somebody must be worried now, and somebody must be thinking very hardly.
Mr. Rwani, thank you so much for your perspectives this morning. Do have a profitable day.
Thank you.
Our Business Morning continues in just